Welcome everyone to another CTC Software webinar. My name is Chris Bircher, Director of Technical Services, and today we're going to have a short discussion about one of the tools from the BIM batch suite called Family Exporter. Before we begin, I want to encourage everyone to ask questions using the questions panel at any time during the webinar. I will be monitoring it as we go and trying to answer them in line with the presentation, and I will hit them all up at the end to make sure all questions get answered no matter what. This is also being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel so that you can come back to this at a later date to get a quick little refresher on the app itself. So with that being said, we'll just go ahead and jump right into it. So today we are discussing Family Exporter. So as you know, the export options in Revit are limited, especially when it comes to exporting your families. Not a lot you can do there. It's kind of a save one or save all sort of a deal. And there's just not a lot of options out there. And I'm sure there's other plugins available that allow you to do some exports. And I'll show you why our Family Exporter is the one you should go for, aside from it just being a free app. So so today, kind of what I'm going to show you today then is a couple of different things. One, where it is, how you get your hands on it. We'll show you how to get into, navigate the user interface a little bit, how to do some configurations to it. There's not a lot here. So it's really easy to use, thankfully. But then I'm going to show you some of the ways I use it and the way I have used it in the past. Give you a little extra context so you can potentially use it in a similar fashion. And because I don't like doing PowerPoints, that's the end of my PowerPoint. So let's jump right into the demo. And I'm just going to show you everything I got. All right. So the Family Exporter plugin is part of our BIM batch suite. So it's the purple shaded tools here that you see, and it's lumped in with the free tools. So when you go to our website and you download a trial of the BIM batch suite, and you get your trial period where you get access to all 5 tools, when your trial expires or ends, you will still get Family Exporter after that. That will always continue to be here until you uninstall it. So you've got nothing to worry about on that front. So inside of the Family Exporter, we have a few options that I want to take a look at here real quick before we export anything out. The first thing is the list of categories. What you see is what you get. What's in your Revit project is what you get here, okay? Now, we have the ability to change how things are being grouped in this list. So right now, by default, it's by category. We're all familiar with that. It shows everything right there, right? We can switch it to go by geometry, which then shows me everything alphabetized, whether it's an annotation family or a modeled family, right? Or a component, model 3D component family, right? So, but this is, straight up alphabetized. Might make it a little easier to find something, especially if you don't know what category it's in, right? Or a handful of things. Or you can do none, and then it's just an alphabetical list of everything. Personally, I tend to leave it in the category options when I'm exporting them. And the reason why is because I typically just search for what I'm looking for. It's either I'm looking for everything, and I'll export everything, or I'm looking for a series of families that I want to export all at once. I usually am able to type that in by name, like single, and then it brings up all my single doors only. In my MEP projects, I type up gas, and then it has anything that has gas in the family name shows up in my list regardless of what category it's in. I can check all those boxes and do my quick little export. So with that, that's just kind of the organizational thing. You get your check all, check none, expand all, expand, or collapse all. You have your export options down here at the bottom. So we get to go ahead and specify our folder. I've got a couple that I've set up already for a couple of different scenarios. So basically you just hit browse and go ahead and pick what you want. in this case, I got to go, I'm going to do a couple of different ones. I'm going to go to my temp folder where I've got my Revit families, and I've got my 2 different folders with exports in them, okay? And I'm actually just going to go ahead and make another new one, not there, here. I'm going to call it 2023 V3 here, just to show you guys what's going to happen. Now, when you export, we have the ability to group the content in a couple of different ways. Basically, the tool is going to go ahead and create some folders for us and then lump the families in those folders. Now, how do I want my folders labeled? Do I want them labeled by category, by geometry, right? So it's either annotation or model, or area tag, baluster, callout, casework, and so on. Or I can say category, then geometry. So it would be area tags, and then inside that, a folder called annotations. And then for doors, it would be doors, and then model. Or you can flip that around and do geometry, then category. So now you've got an annotation folder, and then area tags, door tags, floor tags, room tags. Same with doors. Or I'm with your geometry, and then you get your category is casework, doors, windows, and so on. And then your content just falls in those folders. So I'm going to do a couple of different examples just to see, so you guys don't have to guess based off what I just said. I prefer the geometry to category one, if any. But this is the list. You can't customize this list. This is what you get. The second step then is to define a suffix or a prefix. I know a lot of us like to include our company initials in the content names. That way people know which ones they're supposed to use just by looking at it, right? Sometimes it's hard to tell if I should be using the, area tag or not, right? So you throw the CTC in there, or in my case, the CTC, or whatever your company initials are. I tend to throw that at the back end because then my content is still alphabetized based on what it is, and it falls in line with everything else. You can put it on the front end as a prefix, and then depending on how you put that prefix in, it'll always be kind of be grouped together in a way. So it's up to you. That's why we give you the options. I like this, so I'm going to do an underscore CTC at the end of mine. And before I export anything, I'm going to jump into my options bar here real quick and explain this, because there's a couple of key pieces in here that you may want to know about. Specifically, the replacing of invalid characters in family names with a space, right? So Revit allows for some characters to be used where, a lot of standard Windows applications don't. So because we're saving this out to, our computers or our network, we need to make sure that we don't have any illegal characters in file names. So in this case, those will automatically get replaced with the space. You can uncheck that, and then you'll just get an error that shows up in the log at the end of the report or at the end of the export. But we have 2 other things in here that are important. Overwrite existing family files. So this allows you to update your library if you're exporting all of your content from a completed project, or maybe you're just doing an export to the project families folder location and you want to update some of the families there. This is a great box to have checked. Then deleting of all backups, right? So this just helps with keeping things clean, right? Hopefully our libraries are relatively clean. There's not a lot of backup files hanging out there, but if there are, this tool will help purge them out for you. So it's a nice little extra feature that's built in. And then you get a confirmation message at the end if need be, and at the beginning. So I like those settings, and that's why I'm going to set them up that way. And now I'm going to pick a couple of categories of stuff to export. So because I'm doing geometry and category, I'm going to grab some tags, some casework. We'll do the call outs. I'm not going to grab a ton of stuff, just enough to show the point. And I've got a couple other folders with full-on exports that I'll show you here in a second. And then we'll do these 3 Yeah, I think that's good. You got some annotations in here. You got some component families in here. I'm going to this folder, geometry, then category, and my suffix. So I'm going to export a total of 71 families down here. I'm going to hit export, confirmation message. Yes, let's go. So now it's going to run through and do the export. It's not going to take that long, couple minutes. While this is going, I'm going to show you some of the, talk about a little bit some of the options that I like to use this for, okay? And so personally, I'm of the mindset where I've got my libraries saved on the network. In this case, it's in my temp folder, but on the network traditionally. And I've got a folder for each year of content. And then, you know, I do all my updates in the oldest version that we support in the office, in this case, 2019. And then I'll use an upgrader tool to bring everything forward, okay? Now, there's always going to be changes made to content in the projects, right? Always. Now, if we're constantly making the same changes on many projects, we should get that into our base, into our standard, and then make that available to everyone. So now I can use Family Exporter to export the families out of the project to whatever location that I want, grab those families and replace them with the ones here, okay? And then, you know, if I need to update my templates, then we've got another tool, part of the Bash suite, also free, called Family Loader, which will allow me to batch load the families that are changed or different into my templates or into my starter projects, so that now I no longer have to manually do that, or, you know, provision a list off to the side of the ones that are different, so I don't have to go hunting and pecking for them or trying to remember which ones I did and where I've saved them. Okay. So now, so that's one workflow that I like to use it for, right? Is to quickly get an export of the content from a project to a location so that I can grab the good stuff, okay? Or sometimes, so here's my report. If I had errors here, it would show me those errors, and it'll tell me what family it had an issue with, okay? I had one this morning that I want to show you. Just open up my last screenshots here. And I had an issue getting one of my families exported. And that's because the constraints were set up incorrectly. There we go. There we go. And, you know, during the process, it gave me this message, right? So I can do what I want with it, but then at the end, that error is going to show up in my log here. So I'll be able to go ahead and come back to it. It gives me the family name. I know exactly which ones failed and which ones have succeeded. I can save it if I want, copy paste it into a Word doc, into an Excel file, and continue moving on. Go back to the family, fix it. So it's a great way to keep things clean and up to date, so that you don't get these messages every time you do an export. So I explained, you know, the content update workflow, right? Well, maybe there's another workflow where you guys are of the mindset that you keep everything that you typically need and use in the template or in the starter project, right? So you kind of have everything, you know, we'll say 85, 90% of the stuff that you can think of that someone would need on a regular project, that's already in the template. Everything's there. All the detail families, all the modeled families, just a whole bucket load of stuff. And then if it's not needed, you get rid of it, right? You purge it out. Well, maybe then at the end of that project, there's been some significant updates made to the content, and we need to use that on the next project. So now I export everything using Family Exporter, and you flat out check everything, right? Save it to a location on the network somewhere, and, you know, and maybe that's updating an existing folder of content. You hit go, then you would go back to that content, which should be, oh, that's not the right folder, sorry. This one. Here's everything. I re-export everything. I get all my updates, and then I can go through, and maybe I need to make a change. Maybe I need to make an additional change. Like everything needs to have a version number updated, right? Last date modified, right? Well, just today, but all of my content needs that. I can use a tool like Family Processor from the BIM Manager suite to add that or make that modification to all of my families all at once, and then use Family Loader to get everything back into the project or into the template / starter project, so that project B starts without a problem. And it has all the latest and greatest stuff based off of the last project that I did or the last completed project. And you just kind of keep progressively updating as you go. Export all your content, make an update using Family Processor if need be, turn around, use Family Loader to get it back into a project, right? So there's a couple of different ways to use this depending on how you make your content available. Obviously, there's other tools out there that you may be using on your own internally. We've got another one here where a lot of our customers like to use Hive, make that available. Again, exporter gets it out, then you load everything into Hive. So there's one additional use case that I use this for on quite a bit, and more often than probably many of you, because I'm in more of a support role at times, and that's to track down corruption in Revit files. So sometimes people come to me, in the past a lot, have come to me and said, Revit's either working really slow or I'm getting, these error messages, and I don't know what family it is, right? Well, if the family is actually corrupted, when I try to use this tool to export everything, it's going to fail at that family and then give me the name of that family and the element ID in the report. So you remember that report that I showed you at the end? It would have told me exactly which one failed. Now I can go track it down and figure out what I need to do to either fix it or get rid of it, right? So sometimes going back to the network and opening that family with an audit, cleaning, trying to do, see if there's anything wrong with the base family itself, and then force loading it back into the project with an override will fix it. Sometimes you just have to purge that family out and load in a fresh version of it, but at least now we know what it is, and I can go back and deal with it accordingly. So there's and that's how I used to use this tool strictly, was just to find corrupted families and projects. And I was very successful with it for many, many years. So now that we have a collection of other tools, we have these other workflows established as well. So, all right. And just to show you real quick, because I don't think I spent enough time on it, the output formats. So I've got a few exports completed already that I'm going to show you here. So I've done 3 technically. The one I did right in front of you, this is how it came out. So I told it to go by geometry, then by category. So the geometry is the annotation or the model, then by category. So I did the area tags, callouts, doors, grid heads, levels. And then each individual, or however many families there are, those will be listed accordingly. Same thing with model. Does the model, then the category, then the families associated. So, and I put the underscore CTC, so now everything also has an underscore CTC on it. It only took a couple minutes, so it's not bad at all, considering what it's doing for us. The other thing that I did earlier was I just did a full dump, not that folder, come on, here, but I just did it I did it the other way. I did category, then geometry. So in this option, I ended up with a list of every single category that was found in the project. And then it went to model, or it went to annotation. Now, that in a lot of cases doesn't help me as a content manager, but that does potentially help you if you've got any sort of extra processes that you like to run or quick searches that help that look for certain things in certain places. Because you can totally write up additional scripting to extract content or folders or a series of collections of information wherever you have it. So all right, and one of the key things about this that I don't know if I've mentioned or not is that the content itself just has to be in the project. Doesn't have to be in use. It just has to be loaded. You know, I've got this exports everything. So as long as it's in there, somewhere in that browser, you're going to get it in your export. So, and then let's see here. Yeah, and then we did. All right, I think I got all the examples I wanted to show you. So that concludes the webinar. So I want to start off by saying thank you guys for joining me today. I appreciate it. We always appreciate having you guys here. So thanks again, everybody, and look forward to seeing you guys at the next webinar. Take care, everyone.